Starting to see grid lines like everywhere I looked.
I feel that. Sometimes.
Yikes, I think I left my phone in my car, which is fine, except it's probably just sitting there looking.
You need to use mine?
No, I don't need to use it, I just wondered if it's like
You could
just
call your phone and tell it to miss it.
sitting there like, steal me on the front seat.
Shut my ring.
Yeah, that's
I'm
probably
Probably not a good thing, huh?
if it's visible.
Yeah, it probably is, I would think.
Geez, and I've got like a few laptops just sitting right out.
Yeah, I'm
Probably
sure.
tinted windows, I don't know.
It'll
'Cause
probably.
I trust the community a bit.
Right.
I just leave $100 bill in the seat and no one ever messes with my
See?
laptops.
There you go. Very nice.
It's not really the loss, it's the hassle, right? It's the replacing the window, or
Yeah,
you might as well just leave it unlocked.
so I had a Bible in a cover that looked like a little handbag, almost like a little laptop thing down in California. I was downtown Fresno. Somebody busted my window out and took it. They thought it was a purse or a laptop
Oh,
or
geez.
something. You know, it was okay with me that they got my Bible, but it was like, the window, you know.
Yeah, the window. Oh, shoot. It'll be fine, I'm sure.
I think I still actually have an open claim, because my wife got her car broken into, they took her purse. But yeah, the window wasn't that bad, I think I've got like a $50 deductible, but it's just the annoyance of like having to like cancel all the cards, get all the new ones, all that stuff that goes along with
Right.
it.
It's the hassle.
Well, and the guy went down to California, they caught him, they figured out who he was, he's done this all over the place. So I guess I've lined it up so that if he ever comes back and does the same thing in Oregon again, then they can actually do something about it, but the DA down there just doesn't even care. Even though he stole from minor too, because my daughter's money was also in my wife's purse on a card that we tracked.
I'm always super careful about not leaving things inside just because it just feels like, I've had people break in just for for something that's not, but it's there. Like,
Right.
Just nothing that's even worth that much, but it's there.
Yep.
So like, I don't leave anything in my car, but oh gosh, I should probably go get it. You think I should go get
You
it?
should go get
You
it.
have time. I'm not gonna start for 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll be
Sure,
quick.
everybody has a
I'll
chance
be
to roll
quick.
in.
Don't we
It's
have
gonna
others
sit
coming?
there and be in my head if I don't do it.
That's what I was, I want your head fully in the budget.
Yeah.
Although we're not doing that tonight, right? It's just training.
This is just it's basically a budget law workshop, and just to kind of give you a high level of, here's the rules. In fact, this handbook right here is what the Oregon Department of Revenue issues. For the layperson, this is only 17 pages long.
Yeah, it's very small. I was expecting a massive packet.
The budget manual for financial reporting, though, is it's hundreds of pages
Yeah,
long.
it should be several
Yeah.
hundred pages, I imagine.
I was swimming through that budget last night
Good.
for a few hours, just kind
Oh, has it been released? I guess I didn't see.
For
Was it in the email?
Last year's
For last
budget.
year.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
budget.
you can look at last year's, you
like-
should look at last year's budget.
Oh, okay, sure.
And
It's- You gotta have your
provide
thinking
a-
cap on and a few more things for
we
that.
provide a lot of detail,
Yeah.
which is good, that's transparency.
Yeah.
A lot of cities don't provide every GL line item.
Yeah.
They'll just do a summary, and you'll just see like, this is all the personnel services, this is all the materials and services. And that's it.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to see like where you sourced like a box of nails from or something.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And we're small enough that we do a status quo budget, so if you saw last year's budget, you should be no surprise what you see next year. Now, if there is a difference, that's where we explain the differences, like, okay, this year we're doing this.
Well, I think.
Or there's-
How you doing?
Am I at the right meeting?
Yes, you are, hi.
I thought there'd be more people here, but
There is one more, and she was actually just sitting there. I don't know if
Oh.
they met you or not, but I don't think there's any assigned seating, but
Yeah.
she just ran down to
but
go
if
get her.
she's sitting there, I'll settle over
Sure.
you.
No, she said if anybody sits in her seat,
I just figured I'd let you know, since you were, she ran down to go get her phone. It was in the car.
and what was your name again?
I am Norma Jean Osborne.
Norma Jean, I'm
You're the one that
Derek.
sits over there.
Yes.
My wife likes you. She's
Really?
agreed with you in every single council meeting she's joined, so.
Who's your wife?
Oh, just
My
Jessica
my
Johnson.
neighbor is
Oh.
Doug.
No, no one of consequence, just a citizen.
Okay.
Well, you know, she's
Been on this.
she's special.
She's
Yeah,
special.
Doug
I
is.
mean, without our
He's a good
citizens,
guy,
we
and
aren't
he gets
anything.
This is fair, this is
Works
fair.
with,
But no, she has agreed with you on
so he
everything.
understands.
Every stance you've ever taken, even
That's-
when you
that's
were in the
what I was just
minority.
swimming
Anything
in
you
a
brought
lot
up,
of
she
the
really
different
likes
categories and
your
sources.
opinion on everything.
Well, you know,
So that was.
I was a little unhappy when I said, we should name something
Like I
after
say, you
Native
see the same
American.
things on
Michelle
multiple pages
agreed,
and
but she had no
multiple
vote.
places.
Oh, yeah.
And,
It's a lot of moving
I'll come to the
pieces.
workshop and get a handle on this.
well, my term ends this year, so I think
you're
I'm
not
gonna be
gonna run
running again.
No, you're not going to?
I think I'm going to be
Oh, you,
running
oh,
again.
fantastic, good. Well, we will definitely.
I've kind of gone back and forth on that. It's like, when it's a tough meeting.
There's been some tough ones in the past few months, several months.
I almost stole your chair, but they told me that grave consequence would have happened if I had taken your chair.
I feel much better now.
And what is your name?
Lori.
Lori, I'm Norma Jean.
Hi.
Is anyone else from the council going to be joining?
I do not know. I haven't heard from anybody else. Occasionally, every once in a while, Dave Strand will join, just a refresher.
I might have done this, whatever, but I don't remember much, so. I figured a refresher would always be helpful.
Right.
I took
Well-
a nap so I could get here.
We already have this, Councilor Osborne, this is the budgeting manual. This is the abridged edition, 17 pages of the budgeting rules.
It's in my house
spelled out.
somewhere.
So it's nice to have a refresher and to understand, okay, how does this work? What is our legal requirement? And what happens after we pass the budget? So the budget is a constant process. I mean, we adopt the budget every year, but then there's things that happen during the year, and we have to go back to the city council, and by resolution, we can amend the budget. And we'll talk about that in the presentation. And then as we're going through this year, we're always thinking about, okay, next year's budget, we want to think about this for next year's budget, and we're constantly putting notes down throughout the year.
Always
and the-
doing improvement on your budget process.
Yes. Yeah, and the council has always given us directions throughout the year. Things will come up mid-year, like, oh, wait a minute, we got this new requirement, now we have to do this, and it'll come up as a budget item in the next budget. It's no surprise to everybody who's been in the cycle. It can be kind of shocking if you're brand new to the budget. And so I just wanted to mention that before we get into this.
Like the extended freeze would have been something that, I guess, additional public works budget because of that, right?
Right. Well, those are emergencies, declared emergencies, right? And there's some special rules about that. As long as the city declares an emergency, then you can expend appropriations beyond.
And have a special meeting to get permission from the city council in order to do that. Yeah.
Right.
If the contingency, I'm assuming there's always a contingency set aside for emergencies that happen
Yeah.
historically. And that's only if that allotment is going to be exceeded for a period of time, that's when there would be an emergency meeting?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess we can get started. I don't know if anybody else is gonna join us, but they can hop in here. I printed out the presentation rather than show it up on the screen and stand at the lectern. I'd rather just sit down and have a more informal conversation. But I will email this out to everyone, so everyone has a copy of it to refer back to. I'll get it out to the rest of the budget committee as well, so everyone has a copy.
And this will be going to our internal emails?
Yes. Yes.
Is it okay to forward those to a personal email? Or
Sure.
just-
I mean, we kind of frown on using personal emails, and it's really for your benefit, because once you start doing work on your personal email accounts and your personal devices, then you start opening yourself up to discovery, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So,
Just want to make sure that was acceptable to at least forward this PDF, since you've given it to me here. I assume that it's okay to leave my email inbox.
yeah. So the first slide, we talk about local budget law, as defined by the Oregon Revised Statutes. Oregon Revised Statutes are Oregon law. ORS 294.305 to 294.565 outline the sections constituting local budget law. His purpose is to establish procedures, outline programs and fiscal policies, require estimates and resources of expenditures, encourage citizen involvement, and control expenditure of public funds. So this process is no surprise. If you go from city to city, it's the same process because it is Oregon law.
So we've just adopted the way that other cities have done this in the past?
Yeah.
Okay.
So why follow local budget law? Because if you don't, you open yourself up as members of the city council, as members of the budget committee, as members of staff. Any public official who expends any public monies in excess of the amounts or for any other or different purpose than authorized by law shall be civilly liable for the return of money by suit of the district attorney of the district in which the offense is committed, or the suit of any taxpayer of such district if the expenditure constitutes malfeasance in office or willful or wanton neglect of duty, and that's ORS 294.100. So it's a good reason to follow local budget law.
Where is our district attorney? The one that covers us?
Lee County.
Okay, so it's in Eugene.
So what is a budget? A budget is a financial plan containing estimates of revenues and expenditures for a single fiscal year. The city operates on a fiscal year beginning July 1 and ending June 30 of each year. Budgeting allows a local government to evaluate its needs in light of the revenue sources available to meet those needs. A budget justifies the imposition of taxes, property taxes. It's an internal control mechanism. That being said, we use it because every month we track budget actuals, and then we know, okay, is something misrecorded, is something being appropriated that shouldn't be, and that's done by all the department heads, so everybody has their eyes on the budget actuals monthly. So it works as a very effective internal control for financial reporting in that regard. It's a policy document, so we prioritize what we want to spend the money on based on what council direction we're given. It's a public communication document. It expresses the city's goals to the citizens. The budget committee consists of the governing body, the city council, and an equal number of appointed citizens who are qualified electors of the city. Your primary roles are to hear the budget message, hold the public meetings, hear public comments, review and discuss the proposed budget, make revisions to the budget if necessary, approve the budget, and approve each tax rate. The budget cycle has 9 steps to it, and it starts with appointing the budget officer. And in the city charter, it's the city manager or designee, and the city manager has designated the finance director to be the budget officer.
Are you the finance director?
Yes, myself, sorry.
Yeah, I thought maybe that's what it was, and it wasn't clear from what you said.
Yeah, sorry. I try to use titles. That's from writing too many documents of internal controls for for the auditors, right?
Well,
We
that's
use
good.
titles.
You
so that-
designate roles because people can be hit by cars.
Right, exactly. I could get into this tomorrow. So the budget officer prepares the proposed budget, and that's done through a lot of input through council direction. You'll see in the budget that it's directed a lot by the strategic plan. The city council's strategic goals are outlined in the strategic plan, and that plan is good for 5 years and done every 5 years. And as Councilor Osborne recollects, I'm sure that October 20 of 22, the council passed the latest.
I was trying to remember what year it was, but it felt good to be part of that process.
It was quite an undertaking.
Yeah.
We spent many, many months kind of hashing out what the goals of the city were. I mean, there's a limited amount of resources. There's a lot of things that the city has to get done.
We used this is an important thing to remember as we were doing that plan.
It was comforting to know, listening to that last meeting, that you guys actually review that and you hold to the goals of that. And so a lot of times, strategic plans are something that you do because you have to, and they get set over on a back burner somewhere. So that was nice to hear that.
Thank you. Yes, and I believe that's important that we keep revisiting that in the budget too. It's like, okay, put the dollars where the goals are, right? We have to publish the notices for the budget meetings, and there's a strict publishing requirement that we publish it twice, a week apart. The last one has to be at least 5 days before the meeting, so we can't have meetings any closer than 2 weeks. So you notice we got one on the 7th of May, we'll have another meeting on the 21st of May.
I had a question. So the public can come to those work sessions on that too?
Yeah, the public's absolutely invited. In fact, the second meeting on the 21st, there will be a public hearing. So we'll take public comment at the first one, but public hearing the second one. The first one's the first meeting, and we'll discuss that in the slides here, but the first meeting is really just here's the message from the budget officer and the city manager. Here's the budget. Please take it and go study it and ask us questions, because we want to get a Q&A hammered out for everybody to see, because you may have a question that Lori wasn't thinking about, or Josh wasn't thinking about, or Josh may have a question you weren't thinking about, but it's great to see those questions on a Q&A and then go, oh yeah, I was thinking that too, and see the response and grasp, okay, what is going on, because really it isn't. To a lot of people, it's just numbers and boxes. You know, I joke, that's what I do, I put numbers in boxes, but unless you know what the purpose of those numbers are, you may have questions and may have follow-up questions, and that's encouraged.
No matter what I do, I'm going to be holding back, because when it comes to
Oh,
these
sure.
things, I really do, I kind of nitpick, but it's just to make sure that we're doing everything the best we can.
Sure. So we're gonna have the budget hearing, and there is also a budget summary and notice of budget hearing that's published. These forms are standardized, so no surprises there. And then after the budget hearing is held, the budget is adopted, appropriations are made, taxes are levied, and the budget is filed, and levies are certified with the county assessor.
So where is it filed? Where is the budget filed?
It has to go to Lane County. Lane County assessor has to have a copy to assess property taxes.
And is this all LCOG?
No, it's the Lane County itself.
Oh, okay.
So, budget structure. The first question is, what is a fund? We talk about funds a lot. We talk about the general fund, the street fund. Those are two that come right off the top, water, sewer funds. So the budget is prepared and organized by fund. It's a self-balancing set of accounts used to record estimated resources and requirements for specific activities and objectives. All resources and requirements must be budgeted. Estimates of resources and requirements must be made in good faith. So we can't just say, well, we want to spend $1 million on, this project without having the available resources. And we can't just suppose we're going to have the resources without having some pretty good knowledge that we will, either a user fee that's established or a grant that we've applied for example.
And that would probably be done with the advisement of like the planning commission, right? Because they end up having plans that would be goals that we need to address in a certain prioritization from top to bottom and cost from top to bottom, but that would be outside of the scope of this in terms of budgeting, because this is only gonna be items that we actually have allotment for.
Right.
For a year.
Right, so the city council will do a lot of scoping, and they'll set up user fees throughout the fiscal year. Either establish new fees, like the transportation utility fee that was established to help fund road projects that are on the transportation system plan. So it's not just, the planning commission is specific to land use and housing and development. More of the city council is gonna establish these parameters.
So we're not gonna be seeing costs of estimates of things that they'd like to get done throughout the year of different projects. We're not gonna be seeing those
The
here.
planning commission doesn't do that.
Okay.
They make sure that the rules are followed.
I see.
When somebody wants to build a house or put in a business, they make sure that the rules are followed.
Yeah,
When it's called planning, it's confusing to people until you know what their actual duties are.
yeah, that has more to do with zoning and construction. The city council will be the ones mostly looking at the things I'm talking about, like rate structures, capital projects. Those capital projects will be in what we call master planning documents. So we have a master plan for the water treatment plant. We have a master plan for the wastewater facilities. We have a master plan called the transportation system plan for the roads, and those are huge endeavors that take years to get done. And consultants come in and they meet with the city council and they discuss those plans, and the plans get adopted by the city council once they've fully vetted them.
And are those any items that we'd be reviewing in terms of their costs that would be implemented this next fiscal year?
Not so much as reviewing them. Of course, you could always ask for a planning document, and we could get them to you if you want to look at the wastewater plan.
Well, that's fine. I'm familiar with those ones. I just didn't know if they were gonna come up with this. Sounds like they're a separate item.
Yeah, they're
Yeah,
separate,
okay.
completely separate. That'll go through the city council.
Cool.
So the different fund types, we've got the general fund. The general fund, by definition, accounts for all revenues and expenditures of governmental unit which are not required to be accounted in other funds. So it's basically a catch-all. It's usually the largest and most important accounting activity for the state and local governments. It normally receives a greater variety of number of taxes and general revenues than other funds. Revenue sources include property taxes, franchise taxes, licenses, and permits, state shared liquor tax, cigarette tax, fines, and interest and earnings, to just name a few.
Those are items that the city of Creswell has access to?
Yes, these are funds that we receive from the state and from the county in terms of property taxes.
Just tell me if you're gonna cover this, but I thought I was reading there that there are limits on reserves too in these funds.
Reserves in these funds.
It looked like they were trying to, because there was an excess reserve, they were pushing funds out this last year.
Are we talking at the state level?
Yeah, if they require that you are limited, kind of like a HOA or something, where they might limit your reserves and stuff to, is that true in regard to general funds? And
There aren't any limits at the local level. I think you're
Okay.
thinking of the state level. There's the kicker tax that has to do with income taxes.
okay.
Yeah. A general fund may also show multiple programs, which we do in the city. It's the general administration, culture, recreation, public safety, planning and land use. Another fund type is a special revenue fund. These are funds that account for specific taxes or other dedicated or restricted revenue sources. One that comes to mind right away is the state tax for streets. So the street fund receives taxes from the state, from state gasoline tax, vehicle registration fees. And by state law, those can only be spent on street maintenance. So you can't transfer them to the general fund, you can't spend them on the water fund. There's just only one thing you can spend on, so they call that a special revenue fund. Bicycle footpath is another one, it gets 1% of the street tax, so that also in the law about street taxes can only be used for streets. They also require 1% of it to go to bicycle footpaths. So there's a separate fund for that, to show the transfers from the street fund. And then expenditures related to bicycle footpaths, like bicycle striping. If we had a bike path, it would be a bike path.
And this is all coming from Oregon to us, or from Lane County to us, not from us ourselves.
This is coming from the state of Oregon, yeah, Oregon Department of Transportation.
We don't have one of those.
And then we have a building department fund that collects building permit fees. That can only be spent on the building department. So
And at this time, this is us, it's no longer from Elcog or being handled from Lane County.
Right, no, yeah, we have our own building department now. Another type of fund is an enterprise fund. These are funds that pay for themselves essentially, they use user fees, it pays for the expenses of the fund. Revenue sources include charges for services, revenue from goods sold, hookup fees, repair charges. The things that come to mind obviously is water and sewer. The airport is a enterprise fund as it receives rents for the hangars and sells fuel for the airplanes. And we have a stormwater fund. Another type of fund is a reserve fund. And this is established under ordinance, a resolution. And we have two of them, the water reserve fund and the sewer reserve fund. And these can be used for purposes established under the ordinance. We use these for capital projects for water and sewer. So rather than operating expenses, at the end of the year, when the audit is done, we look to see what the excess revenues over expenditures were for that year, and then whatever that was in that year will get transferred in the budget the following year to a reserve fund, and these are for our large-scale projects that are in our master planning documents that are in the millions of dollars. And we're doing really good at keeping reserves set aside, although the sewer one's coming up really fast. You'll hear, if you haven't already heard, shocking news about the sewer fund. DEQ has put a moratorium limitation on us until we can get the sewer upgrades completed.
And that was part of the $1 million that was requested?
Yes.
And we got that?
We
That
got
actually
that.
did get approved?
That did get approved.
And that is not going to be transferred until this next fiscal year? And it will go to the Water and Sewer Reserve Fund?
So grant funding will be spent in the operating fund,
Okay.
typically.
Okay.
That way it doesn't get kind of lost in the transfer shuffle, right?
I see.
It's not really, because it's not excess revenues over expenditures from a previous year, it's grant monies in that year, so.
And
A little different.
the state of Oregon keeps it and holds it, and we draw from it?
Depends on the grants. Some grants are prepaid, or paid in advance, and then you have to track all your expenditures, and then you're audited. There's more scrutiny in the audit, like, did you spend it on the project because we paid you in advance? Other grants are reimbursement only. So you'll do the project and then you'll submit invoices to get reimbursed.
So that specific one that we did just get from Oregon that was granted to us, the $1 million, that's not been transferred to us yet?
Not yet, no.
Okay, and so we don't know the parameters
Will that
of
be
it.
in next budget period that begins
Yes.
in July?
We're expecting that next year's budget.
So not the one that we're going to be talking about, or the one we will be talking
The
about?
one we will be talking about.
Okay, great. I know I'd like that one to be, if we are going to be granted it, it would be nice for it to be sitting there gaining interest until we use it.
Yeah, absolutely. So a debt service fund is just that. It's a separate fund set aside to keep track of principal and interest payments on a loan.
Yeah, I was seeing that one there, and I'm like, that's going to lead right into it. Very important.
It's good to have the transparency, and
Yes.
believe me, from the accounting side of it, it's nice to have.
That really adds up, even if it's small numbers, like only several million. I mean, it really can help a lot.
Capital project funds, we have a couple of those. The capital improvement fund is essentially for big ticket items here at City Hall. And the street capital improvement fund, that is our big street projects.
And that's street projects that are part of like master planning in terms of what's gonna be developed next. I had seen or heard, at least from the city planner, that in terms of some of those very expensive areas where they're gonna be adding sidewalk, that they're actually, instead of gonna be working on pulling from like a general fund or us passing anything here, but they're actually gonna be billing the people whose land it's next to. Is that typical moving forward, or are we just doing that so we can get it done?
No, that's typical. That's a local improvement district. It's an exchange of, hey, you have to help pay for the improvements in front of your house because you're gonna get instant equity in your home, right? Your home's value is going up because you have this nice curb gutter sidewalk. So it seems only fair.
Yeah. I know when it comes to certain plats, certain subdivisions, money had been paid into for that to happen in certain areas. And I know one of the affected areas, I'm definitely going to be interested in taking a look at where that came from or where it went, because there was money set aside for some of that. And near as I can tell, it's been used, but it wasn't used for its intended purpose, and that was from the previous planner. So I'll just be interested to see this, and perhaps I can see some of the previous budgets to see maybe what had happened to it. So if there's not a double payment from some of those residents, they might be a little grumpy.
So the budget structure, the line item description is the first thing you'll see to the left. And you'll see 2 years of actual information that's required. And then a budgeted amount for the current fiscal year. So in this case, it's our current fiscal year right now is the one that ends June 30, 2024. And then you'll see an estimate. So we've basically annualized when we were creating the document. We're 10 months into the year. Here's what it's going to look like in 12 months. Some of it's really easy to do because it's monthly standard payments every month. So some of it's a little more challenging, but we can get pretty close estimates using analytics. So we get the estimated amount, which really helps going into the budgeted amount. We can kind of figure out where we're going to end up with, for instance, our ending fund balance, which is amounts that are going to be carried over into the next year.
I like the 4th of July parade and the fireworks and all of those items. That's put on by the city? Is that something that's a line item in here for cost?
No,
It's not put on by the city.
Oh, I was curious, yeah.
Yeah, it's put on by the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Is it a fixed, you do it fixed on the actuals, or is there an escalator built in also, or?
For the 4th of July?
Oh, no, I was just talking about in the budget, when you were talking about the way you're budgeting on actuals, and do you have an escalator built in there also, or are you just taking those actuals?
But just the actuals. If I can get, I get a hold of EPUD and Pacific Power and Light and see if I can get it. What is their increase gonna be next year? Like, is it a 3% increase next year, or is it more? Then that kind of helps me also gauge. Okay, do I need to bump it up a little for inflation?
And if it's not like a utility cost, if it's just general cost increases, I think Portland State University does studies that Oregon tends to adopt, right? And then we just look at those and probably adopt them as well.
Right. Yeah, we do. I do get a lot of information from the state. They have a very helpful economic outlook that comes out every year. They have the state share revenue report that comes out every year. So there's lots of resources there to kind of do good estimates.
Some of it's pretty good. I think some of it in terms of work with roads is a little wrong, skewed, but.
So once we get through the budget process, you'll see the proposed budget column, and you'll see everything else after that blank. Then an approved budget will populate the approved budget column when it goes to the city council for adoption, and then they'll adopt the budget. And once they make any changes or keep it, then after that meeting, it gets populated and we have a final budget with all the columns. On the next slide is an example of what it looks like.
And our involvement is just for the approval portion.
Right.
Our involvement. You actually get to adopt it. You get to vote.
Yeah, but
You're special.
the council's on the budget committee, so it's not, there's usually no surprises by the time it gets back to the council. It's a formality at that point.
Nice.
You know,
So is there?
We
is
still
there-
look at it to make sure that it looks good. you
Yeah.
know.
oh yeah, and scrutinize it quite a bit.
Right.
You do a line item narrative for each of those also, or in the proposal, the initial budget that you're proposing, is there a line item narrative in that if there's any change? Line item narrative.
Not specifically by line,
Okay.
but there is a narrative explaining, you know, why personnel costs are going up or why, essentially anything over 5% is usually explained. Because that would be more than typical. So in this example, it's the bicycle footpath adopted. So you have all the columns filled out, the proposed, approved, adopted columns. This is just the total resources. You'll see later that there's also requirements, and that requirement should equal resources, it should balance. If not, then please, let's make it balanced before it gets adopted, because it needs to be balanced by law. Fund structure, revenues. Revenues should be reflected by category. Interest earnings, charges for services, taxes, fees, fines, licenses, permits, should all be reflected separately. Revenue should reflect an accurate estimate of what is anticipated during the coming fiscal year. We talked about that. Revenues are not appropriated, so whereas appropriations are the expenditure side of it, that's the legal requirement. There is no legal requirement for revenues. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly where the ORS is going with that, other than that, I guess we're not required to have a certain amount of revenue. I guess there's no requirement, but we do have to have the expenditures, and they do have to balance. So in essence, you do have you have an obligation to bring in the revenues to pay for the expenditures. But it's the expenditure side that you can get in legal trouble with if you overspend. Fund structure expenditures, so there's categories that are set out by the ORSs. Personal services is essentially payroll-related items, so it's salary and wages. It's also all the things that go with that, medical, dental, vision, life insurance, all the things you'd expect to see on a payroll report. Materials and services is essentially supplies. It can also be contractual services for like a consulting group to come in and do some work. Capital outlay is the capital expenditures by definition, and it's generally over $5,000 and an asset that will last more than a year. Debt service is our principal and interest payments on loans. Transfers are monies that go to and from funds. Operating contingency, Josh, you asked about that earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we actually have an internal, or the council has established a fiscal policy, rather, that 15% of operating expenses be held as contingency every year.
Fantastic.
Also, fund reserves need to be 25% for enterprise funds and 30% for the general fund, in the event that there was a revenue loss. And I can't think of an example of that other than maybe property taxes come in late for some reason, but we still have to make payroll. So they want to make sure that there is a reserve amount in the fund. All our funds are well funded. We have adequate reserves. Historically, the city's had very good fiscal policy and no desire to take out debt. So it's been good to work for a city that has that kind of accountability and fiscal responsibility.
From what I could tell, that was largely in part of the rapid growth from the 90s and 2000s, and that's just been, we've kept it moving forward.
On the next slide is an example from the budget, from the current budget that we're in right now, 2023-24 budget of the categories. So you'll see personal services, circled, materials and services, capital outlay, and operating contingency. And then you can see the level of detail underneath each of those, line by line. On the next slide is just an example of total resources equaling total requirements, just something to key into when you're reviewing the budget document. Let's just make sure that we stay within budget law and that we have a balanced budget. Next slide, we talk about the fiscal year 24-25 budget process. So that's the one that y'all signed up for, and we really started compiling the budget in January. So at this point, we're pretty much ready to print, bind, and get it to y'all next week.
Okay.
So a week from today, we'll have our first meeting, and you'll be presented the budget, and there'll be a slideshow presentation that's a high level. Here's what's changed year over year, fund by fund, and then a Q&A at the end of the meeting, and then hopefully follow-up emails with further Q&A so we can really hash out the budget. And like I said, I'll keep those posted on the website so that they're there for everybody to review. If you don't think you have any questions, peruse the Q&A on the website and see what other people have asked. On that note, one thing we need to be careful we don't do is message each other back and forth on emails. Councilor Osborne, you're aware of this because of all the ethics training that the city attorney puts us through every year.
Right.
Especially when Lane County got in trouble for having a serial meeting via email. So the courts decided that talking about things in a serial fashion through email, like I could email you and you email me, and then I email Josh or Josh emails you, and pretty soon we have a quorum, right? Eventually, you've talked to Derek, and then Derek shot an email over to Lori, and then they start counting the number of people in the thread, and they go, okay, now we have a quorum, and now we have an illegal meeting.
It's because it's not in the public's eye, right? That's what
Right,
makes it
it's not in
illegal.
the public's eye.
Right, so don't reply all to any of my emails, please.
Okay.
And if you want to reply individually, that's fine.
So one-to-one is acceptable?
Yeah, but please don't hit reply all.
One-to-one,
Scary.
where it's passed on.
I see.
Or one-to-one-to-one, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a tricky one.
It becomes a serial meeting instead of just a one-to-one question.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's why I won't reply with a Q&A, like mass email back out to everyone. I'll put it on the website, and it's just there for viewing. It's not a back and forth conversation. But one-to-one's fine.
Perfect. Thanks. That is new for me. I haven't read that before.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, and I get that, totally understand why the budget, why the public meetings law is there. And I just don't want to accidentally walk into that, so I just avoid the reply all.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things that was supposed to be the spirit of the law versus the actual law, but let's just be careful.
So we talked about the meeting on the 7th, and then the 21st will be the deliberation, the public hearing. It'll be hopefully where everyone comes together and we hash out an approved budget so that we can get that to the city council for adoption in June. We do have to have an adopted budget by the end of June. We can't spend money July 1. Essentially, the government would shut down if the budget isn't passed in June.
We can't follow the footsteps of the federal government.
On vacation.
The federal government has their own budget rules. They could just,
Really, are you sure that our commission shouldn't be partisan? I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, city council should be partisan too. Yeah. I think we work to bet, I think the city council works together well because we
Yeah.
aren't partisan.
Exactly.
Yeah. The only thing we have in common is that we care about our city.
Absolutely. It's just different ways of trying to help everybody,
Right.
right?
right. And the local level is yeah. I just keep thinking, city is water, sewer, streets, and parks.
Yeah, there you
As
go.
long as we can keep those straight.
Yep,
we're good.
absolutely. Like, at least that, please. At least that.
June 10th will be the city council meeting. There'll also be another public hearing, and at that public hearing, there'll be an adoption of the budget.
And these are also
Categories.
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock, yes, and you're more than welcome to come, please.
You're welcome to come to any of our meetings.
Yes.
The public is encouraged, if you have something you want to talk about, or you just want to listen.
Great.
Yes, yes. The process is a year-long, year-over-year process. I mean, with these master plans are like 20-year forward thinking, you know, and it's a lot to get there.
Yeah, it's a lot more after PSU had said that UGB-wise that we were considered to be low growth, which is fine, so long as it's smart growth.
Right.
But it does make it a little more difficult for some of these 20-year plans that might end up being longer than 20 years.
When we talked about what happens after the budget is adopted, I have to get 2 copies over to the county assessor, and then there needs to be one with the county clerk as well. And the Oregon Department of Revenue also gets one. I didn't put it on the slide, but to get those state shared revenues that you asked about earlier, the liquor tax and the cigarette tax, and the road taxes.
So we're gonna see all of those in the pamphlet that we get, essentially, like, of the next budget. It's gonna show where
Yeah.
all of the possible monies are coming from. Okay.
And those numbers are, I mean, you can go pull the state shared revenue report and pretty much plug those numbers. They
Okay, that could be
even
helpful.
list them out by city.
Except for some of this recent stuff that was passed, right? That probably wouldn't be there
Yeah,
yet?
I won't do that.
Okay.
All right. Any questions so far?
July 15th, September 30th, also 6 o'clock?
Yes. Oh, actually, sorry. Those dates are reporting dates to the county assessor.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, and Lane County Records Clerk. No, what are our July meetings? I don't have it in front of me.
Okay.
It's the second Monday and the fourth Monday of every month.
Oh, okay.
It's the 8th and the 22nd in July.
Thank you.
I won't be here on the 8th. I'm actually going on vacation.
Good for you. So it's your turn.
I know, it's been a long time. Vermont.
Oh, fun.
My daughter lives in Vermont, so I'm gonna spend a couple weeks with her, taking the train someplace.
Hopefully it's nice and cool up there.
NYC or Boston,
Yeah.
wherever we feel like going.
Fun.
Since I've never been there, it's, you know.
Oh, it'll be your
I've only
first
been to
time.
Vermont, but I haven't been anywhere else.
So I have some general questions that I've shared from previous budget committees that have asked during this training. One of the questions I get asked a lot is what if I have questions after initial budget presentation. And please feel free to reach out to city manager or myself and make inquiry about specific budget items. Yeah, you can request any information required during the consideration of the budget. And what if the governing body changes the budget approved by the budget committee in a way that the budget committee does not approve of? And that was one of the things. Really, they really shouldn't. I mean, they're on the budget committee with the budget committee members. You all seem to hash it out together during the budget committee meetings. so that by the time it gets to the council, there's really no surprises.
Okay.
The governing body has the right to make changes, however, the amount of expenditures for each fund may not increase more than 10%. And something we always tell councilors and budget committee members, if you want to change something, okay, but the budget has to balance. So if you're going to take it out of one program, or put more in one program, you're going to have to take it out of another program, or vice versa. So,
Most of my enhancements would simply be reductions and efficiencies. But I am curious what that would really look like, because I also want to make sure there's not scope creep, because I kind of feel like any changes that we would like to make or would like to discuss making, I don't know that that really is a reason for us to hold up approving it. I think it's like, okay, we can approve it as is, but let's start having all these discussions for next time. And I think that's kind of, isn't that kind of right?
Yeah.
Like, but I see a lot of these things that could drastically be improved, like new contracts for certain types of work being done. That could be half the cost that we're spending right now. Well, great, I'm not gonna hold up this one to say, like, no, let's slash that in half. That's not the point of this, right?
right.
Okay.
Right, no, and the appropriation is a not to exceed amount, right? We're always shooting for less. That's why we go out to bid. We go out to bid to get 3 bids and try to get the lowest bidder. You know.
But also making sure that that lowest bidder is also being reasonable.
Right.
Otherwise,
Right.
rebid. Yeah,
Right, or you
something.
get, like, you get a bunch of change orders, and then you end up being over this other company that gave you a better bid, so you have to be really cautious in reviewing those bids and just making sure that, okay, is this legitimate? And that's why you get 3, really, is so that you can look
Some
at-
of these
look at
people
them.
we've already done business with, so we know that they're ethical or not.
Right, and that's also another big part of it too, is you want to make sure that it's reliable, not just bargain basement.
Right,
Right.
right, you check on, make sure they're not disbarred too. I mean, you go through all the steps to make sure that it's a legitimate bid and it's a good bid. So we talked about more than 10%. Now, they can change it more than 10%, but they have to notice it to the public. They have to hold a public hearing, so there's a lot more.
If it's more than 10?
Yeah, it's more than 10%, so.
What has been the average that you've seen?
No more than 10%, and generally a specific amount. It's usually, oh, hey, like we just purchased a code enforcement patrol car for $7 grand.
That's all?
Yeah,
Pretty
from
cheap.
Lake County.
Oh,
Well,
so the yearly cost.
No, it was actually the cost of the vehicle.
Wow.
And it was one that they were taking out of police service, and they wouldn't do that for the layperson, but for another governmental entity. This is what we'd sell for, just our unamortized cost, basically.
And that would help decrease the yearly cost of a deputy.
I am not sure how Lake County did. This probably does help their budget, their pool of money as well.
Because we are still using them, and those costs are dramatically increasing all the time.
Correct.
Versus, are we big enough to actually have our own police force, which at the moment we're not, so. that's
The
why it's been brought up.
I asked those questions before, and the cost of establishing our own police force, all the cost would be a lot more than
So
we're
much
paying
more.
now.
Yeah.
It's, unless you want to donate,
Right, no, I was gonna say, I don't even know that Cottage Grove's really pans out, to be honest.
Yeah, well,
They're still such a small populace as well.
and they're kind of reeling now. They've shut down I just found out they shut down their jail. They can't afford it.
Yep.
Well, the city of Manzanita has their own police force, and they're only, according to the census, 600 and 700 people, but there's so many people putting money into all the funds that don't live there.
Oh, wow, yeah.
It's like, please.
Yeah, they're paying money on the septic and they're not there to use it, they're paying money
Wow.
on water, they're not using it.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So there's a lot of money and then if they rent the place out, they're putting money into it, so.
That was Canada. I used to
It-
work on
In
a lot
even a
of
town that
different
small, it makes sense to have their own police force.
Hmm.
So it's not just the size of the city, it's the size of the revenue.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Yeah, those cities can't afford it through other means. Yeah, Canada Beach has saved their actual transit room taxes more than their property taxes by a lot.
Well, that doesn't make
Yeah.
sense.
There's a
It's a
lot
whole
of
other animal.
Yeah, there's a lot of people renting out there. They're putting $1 million plus homes in there and just using it once in a while for their own use, and then they pay a lot.
Yeah, that does help.
They have to have a license to do that
Sure.
besides.
No, I've got property in Deschutes County, but I clearly don't live there. I'm giving them so much money in taxes every year, but you know what? It's fine.
Yeah.
So, unless y'all have additional questions, the next slide is really a link to this document. If you want to go to the Oregon Department of Revenue and look for those documents, there's the short version and then there's the larger manual. This is more of a reference. If I have to research something, I'll go to it. But that's kind of the high-level approach to budgeting in Oregon. So it's very formalized, it's very form-driven. You can look at other cities and you'll see pretty much the same format. The level of detail may vary, like I said before the meeting, that we show every GL, general ledger account line budget item, but some cities just show a summary of category. So they'll show the category expenses.
So 5 to 30 days before the scheduled hearing, and that doesn't even say business days. So you could even theoretically do it like near a holiday and it wouldn't be an issue, like July 4th, I guess. But we wait 2 weeks just because? Did I understand that correctly? You said it was 2 weeks?
Yeah, we do because of the week between the first and second publication of the notice.
So we're just nice, we let the populace have a little bit of time to digest it a bit before
Right.
doing it.
Right.
We appreciate the input from the citizens.
Absolutely.
It's essential, you know, we care about what they feel, but if they're more likely to approve of what's going on if they have input into what's going on.
Yeah, totally. No, that's actually nice. I would have thought that 14 days was actually a little short, but as it looks like 5 to 30 is the range. 5 is not long.
No.
Especially like I was saying, it doesn't say business days. Like,
Right.
if you do that on a holiday weekend, people might have 2 days to look at it.
That's not fair. Yeah. Did you have any questions? So this is just to keep you out of trouble. This is like, hey, this is the budget law. This is what we have to follow. The process is pretty well established in Oregon law.
Yeah, there's your 10% you were talking about.
If I remember correctly, we've received several awards from the state of Oregon for how well we've been doing our budgets.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
It's actually the Government Finance Officers Association budget award, and yeah, we just received our 8th one.
Yeah.
And we get review comments from from reviewers that are from all over the country, so it's kind of nice to see input from not just other jurisdictions within our state, but other states, and see that we have lots of good comments about how transparent our budget is compared to others. I mean, it really can be very abridged. It can be also very quickly done without a lot of citizen involvement, and that's not the case here.
Under the portion of revenues toward the bottom on here, it's talking about the district's permanent rate limit. Do you know what our permanent rate limit is?
Yes, 26705, so
Okay.
$2.6705. So it's like the fuel pump where it's like hundreds of a penny, right? It's like,
Oh, okay.
but
He has numbers running through his head constantly.
it's really low. I mean, some cities are upwards of $8 to $10 per thousand assessed. So we do a lot on a shoestring budget, but
So the rate limit times the estimated district assessed value is how you're getting to our permanent rate limit.
Yes.
What is our estimated district assessed value?
Oh, I can tell you from this one what it was.
Sorry, I guess this is stuff that you'll be getting now, I'll actually be getting in the next booklet, but I was just curious.
Yes. So,
And is there any correlation to the 3% property tax increase year over year limit that Oregon has?
oh yeah.
This is in correlation with that.
Yes, so our 3% year over year is measure 50, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then measure 5 limited the amount per category. So we have a $10 limit on local government taxes and
We're nowhere near that.
no, well, 26705, we're the 26705 of the $10, but there's also like South Lane Fire District. There's
Oh, I see.
The library district.
So this would be roughly $10 overall that all of Oregon government could
Yeah.
increase.
Yeah, so what's fascinating is that in Lane County, for our district, say if you paid property taxes in the city of Creswell, 18 cents to every dollar is what the city receives. And
Okay.
the rest of it's going to these other districts that are within.
So really 8 cents of that 26 is going elsewhere. Okay.
It's,
Since you said we received 18.
oh, 18 cents on the dollar of
Yeah.
taxes that you pay.
Oh, I see.
So,
Oh, of everything that we bring in?
yeah.
Or- Oh,
Of what a.
well, yeah, the school
taxpayer
district does
would
actually
pay.
take about like half. I don't know, it seemed like it, but the bond for the middle school is huge, so.
Yes. So the assessed taxable value was 451 million for the city of Creswell.
451 million, okay.
Yeah, $723,642.
And where did we get that?
So
assessment?
that amount you can actually pull from Lane County Assessor's website. If you go to their website, you can pull up tax reports by year. And they'll
Okay.
have us, what's the report called? Value comparison, I think is the name of the report. But yeah, it's pretty cool. You can look up every city in Lane County.
Yeah, I was
Get
curious,
assessed.
I was curious if the commercial assessment rates were the same as the residential.
As far as the
The
3%
Oh, the
year over year?
increase?
Yeah, it's,
Well, and do
Across the
we have
board.
any enterprise zones? Do we have one here?
we do have an enterprise zone here.
Oh, okay. And that's just not necessarily a deferment, but just a reduced rate for a period of time, right?
That's my understanding, yes. Yeah.
I don't know if that helped answer any of this.
Yeah.
It's a little bit different in the enterprise
I was
zone.
trying to figure out, it's like, what is it, 1.7 miles of the incorporated area or something like that?
Pretty
City
close
or-
to that. Yeah, I wish my city planner was here because he would know
Yeah.
exactly, right?
Curtis would
Yeah,
know.
that's about a mile and a half.
I was just
1.7.
trying,
Yeah.
thinking about growth and those on that edge of things, you know, and additional tax revenue and business, you know, tax revenues and those kind of things. Just where's the area for that to take place, you know? If you get data centers or this or that, would you have to somehow appropriate some county land out here? Or, I mean,
Well,
how would Creswell get a piece of that?
The urban growth boundary is set by the state. And so we're going through a process to expand that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily a consideration. Yeah, I'm sure it is, but I don't know that we'll get one. I don't know that the populace would even want it, from what I've seen. I would personally want it, but I don't think that's the opinion of most people living here.
Well, it does certainly do a lot for services. and
It certainly does,
things.
yeah.
You know, when you talk about police departments and those types of things, it just,
I think Creswell's kind of at a point where the populace either has to be okay with what we have now and just kind of staying the small town feel, or allowing us to grow a little bit beyond small town. We can still be small town, but like, there definitely needs to be some changes. So I think it's gonna take some change in mindset for people to be okay with it.
yeah. And
Kind of a
it
crossroads.
also, you can still keep small town just depending on the kind of businesses that come in and
I
those
completely
types
agree.
of things.
Yeah, I mean, there's some people, when it comes to like the transportation plan, the feedback that they got is like, if we've got 2 lanes in each direction anywhere, that's not a small town anymore. Okay, but it also helps with the traffic flow at that one spot, so maybe we should consider it.
Well, we don't really have that choice in this town. We
Yeah.
can't, we can't do anything about that.
It's pretty rough.
It's just imposed on us.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know, it's less of a concern of small town feel versus feasibility.
I've heard the League of Oregon Cities has been trying to battle this whole Measure 5, Measure 50 thing, you know. I think that's gonna be ongoing. I know that, I've heard that California defeated a similar thing because essentially, so your taxable value only goes up 3%. Your actual market value could skyrocket, as we've seen. Unless it's a new home purchase, right? So what the argument was in the state of California was that basically you're taxing young home buyers more than everybody else through this system.
Which I think theoretically, the idea there was to help the older people in the population because they're gonna be more on fixed incomes.
Right.
So the idea there was to try and help them with their costs. But is that fair? I don't know. It's not up to me to decide, I guess.
Yes.
But I understand why
That's
it was
gonna be the
done.
courts, right?
It's just for people who are lower income. And if they were already in there, then they kind of get grandfathered in a bit.
And Measure 5, Measure 50 was the 3%. Measure 5 was the, you get your permanent rate based on, and this was the weirdest thing. Like
That's this one, right?
They set our permanent rate in the state based on the amount of need, and a lot of that was driven by the amount of debt a city was in. So cities that had a lot of debt got a higher tax rate.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could see like there being special reasons why it would be necessary, like if the city
Well, yeah.
was gonna go bankrupt or something like.
Right, when it was passed, yeah, and that was eons ago now, so if the stuff gets revisited, they could totally change the funding structure of the
So,
city.
and I haven't kept abreast of things. Have there been any changes with all those flood zone changes that happened here
Oh, yeah.
a year or so ago? I mean,
That was, I think, just several months ago.
right. I mean,
But we were
just-
only removing our Creswell's like restriction of it. So like, you still have to go through Oregon and all the different levels of government outside of us to get it approved and make sure it's okay. But at least this way, we're not gonna be like the one stopping you if everybody else says it's fine. Well, they know a whole lot more about it than we do.
Just was looking at, insurance costs and those kind of things, when you're in some areas that are kind of like we're over there by the golf course and it's like they drug that flood zone area over there. It's like, from what, really, that river is gonna come all the way up over here in our
I'm surprised,
neighborhood.
100-year flood, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
300-year floods even.
Yeah.
My friend lived in a 300-year floodplain and it flooded twice within 20 years, so
Jeez.
you really don't.
That's surprising.
Like they did down south and everything with the fire ratings and all those kind of things, because all the towns that were burning and stuff, and they
Right.
changed all that. People are uninsurable in a lot of areas.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, so there's a lot of external forces that we have no control over that they can change things in a heartbeat, and yeah. That's why we call it estimates, because, and that's why we get to do budget resolutions during the year. It's just, you don't know everything all the time, things happen.
Yeah, is it gonna be taking into account revenue from businesses that are in the process of like permitting right now that will likely be completed during the fiscal year?
Yeah, those are things that we factor in,
Okay.
especially.
So like that Taco Bell, I'm sure will
Building
be,
permit activity, yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Or was there a McDonald's as well, or something?
Yeah,
like
there's
that?
gonna be
McDonald's. Yeah,
McDonald's.
there's gonna be McDonald's, so that could be helpful. But also, they're paying quite a bit right now to try and get hooked up, is what I understood. But I
Right.
think that's just going directly to it, right?
Right, yeah, they pay system development charges, and those will, I don't know if we talked about system development charge funds, SDCs. Those monies can only be spent on capacity improvements.
Oh, fantastic then.
So they're paid for by new development, and they're set aside for, which is really helpful. So like if we do a project on a water line and we upsize it from an 8-inch line to a 12-inch line, the difference in cost between the 8 and the 12-inch line can be spent, we can spend SDC funds on.
Perfect. So even if both of these, I don't know where the McDonald's is gonna be, I see obviously where the Taco Bell is going. Even if both of these are over on the other side where there's less of an issue with expansion, we could actually spend those funds still on this other side of town where we need it.
It's going where they're trying to walk.
Oh, okay, so it actually is on this side.
It's on this
Oh,
side.
okay.
And I anticipate, this is off the subject, I anticipate a lot of input into our transportation utility fee from both of those, which will help repair the roads that are gonna get the extra wear
There's
and
gonna be a
tear.
lot of extra people coming through town.
Good, yeah, that's good.
And
Yeah.
of course, then more to our gas stations and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, I think it's, personally, I think it's too bad that we don't have a, like a 1 or 2%, or 2 cent gas tax, only for people who don't use the local zip code.
well, you know what? They found that it really wouldn't pay out more.
That's what I heard. Yeah.
More and more people are with electric cars and
Mhm.
you know.
Just put a toll booth in right at the.
Portland, right?
Yeah, well, I know.
Yeah.
Fast food
Yeah,
truck.
Next time I ride
over the
Red
bridge,
205.
gotta go over that bridge.
Yeah.
Better have some toll money.
And hand out all the Creswell citizens prepaid fast pass.
Yeah, as funny as it is, it costs us more money to do something like that than we get in.
Oh, you think so? That's too bad.
Yeah, that was the thing with the gas tax too. So you have to, the Oregon Department of Revenue collects it, and then they charge you to collect it, and then you get your taxes less administrative fees.
Interesting.
We see that with transit room tax too as well. It's,
So it was only like hundreds of thousands, it wasn't millions or something?
Yeah, it was only
The
hundreds of
projections.
thousands, yeah.
yeah.
I wonder what's gonna happen there, that place back behind TJ's, it's up for sale now too.
Behind TJ's?
Yeah, a piece of
Old
ground there's
knob.
for sale.
And that old knob,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, I'd love to see something done with that.
It's got a lot of development going on right now.
Does it really? Oh, that's good. Haven't heard that.
I should say utilization.
That old
Rather.
Foster Farms chicken place though, that's not even Creswell, is it?
No,
That's Lane County.
That's in the Lane County. Yeah.
It's too bad having that facility just lying dormant though. It is, isn't it? It's not being used for anything?
It's just lined up.
Isn't it for sale?
Yeah, it is for
It
sale.
is for sale.
Well, it's close enough. I wonder if it's
I'd
being
like to
considered for
see some
UGB
sort of
expansion.
business go in there that would provide family wage jobs in there and not a chicken processing plant.
Right. Although I guess there's worse things to process.
I don't know, I've never been around it, but I've heard it's pretty awful smell.
Oh, I bet.
And when it was functioning before, there weren't very many houses around there, but now there's a lot of
That
houses.
does make sense, yeah.
For what we've lost in water revenue to Foster Farm, we've absorbed over the years. I've looked at that. But essentially, I think the water plant was built right after it was built, Foster Farm shut down, and it was quite a shocker. It was like, okay, we had all this built-in capacity for, you know.
Them and then.
But now we
Issues
need
are-
it now, right? We
Yeah.
need that capacity.
Yeah, now
Since the
we've
city has
absorbed it
grown
with the city.
really
of
So that's
quickly
good,
over the years.
especially that side of town.
All right, unless y'all have any more questions, y'all are free to go, and
All right.
I'll see you in a week. Same place,
Thank
same time.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
See y'all later.
See ya.
See ya.